So here we are on the day after Jesus is killed. And I think, interestingly enough, the situation that we are in now mirrors the situation that Jesus' disciples were in back then. They were huddled together in their homes with a small group of disciples. They were wondering what God is doing. They were wondering what's going to happen next. Where do we go from here? I think with the situation that we are in right now, we are doing the exact same things that Jesus' followers would have been doing on this Saturday. I'm sure some of the disciples woke up on Saturday and they were praying, they were hoping that everything that happened the day before was just a bad dream, that they would walk around the corner and there's Jesus making pancakes for breakfast. But as the day goes on, it becomes abundantly clear it wasn't a dream. Jesus is gone. And we know from Scripture that the disciples were scared, that they were anxious about what was coming. They didn't know if the religious leaders were coming after them next for following after Jesus. They probably thought that they were the next ones going up on crosses. And so we know that they kind of huddle away. They kind of seclude themselves because they're afraid for their own lives. They're afraid of what the future holds, and they are devastated that Jesus, their friend, their teacher, their pastor, is no longer with them. On the flip side, we also see the religious leaders dealing with a different type of anxiety. It says that the next day, the chief priests and the Pharisees, the religious rulers, the religious leaders that were responsible for Jesus' death, they go up to Pilate and they say, hey, do you remember Jesus, that guy, that imposter that we just killed yesterday? Yeah, before he died, he said, oh, you'll kill me, but in 3 days, I'm coming back. And they're starting to freak out. They're like, what if he actually does? What if his disciples come to the tomb and they steal his body and they say, look, Jesus raised from the dead? And they are so concerned with the optics of their own decision. They're so concerned about being right in this situation that they start freaking out. They come to Pilate and say, hey, we need to up our security. We need to station guards outside of the tomb of a dead dude. Just so that their reputation, that their decision, that everything that they did was validated and was correct. And they wanted to do everything that they could to protect that decision that they had made in case that they were wrong. Or in case the disciples came and grabbed Jesus' body, they didn't want other people to start questioning them. We see Jesus' disciples huddled, filled with anxiety. What is God doing here? We see the religious leaders saying, I don't know what's going on, but I don't want to be wrong. and I'm starting to get really concerned that I might be wrong. And we see everyone acting out of anxiety and fear. They're acting out of the deficiencies within themselves. Everyone is left wondering, what is God doing? And I think that we're asking ourselves the same question right now. What's going on? What does the future hold? And I think that we can, even on a deeper level, we can empathize with what the disciples were feeling. Yeah, Jesus told the disciples, in 3 days, I'm coming back. But they had no comprehension of what it would mean for someone to come back from the dead. They hadn't really seen that before. So for Jesus to say, I'm going to overcome death, that's like the last thing that anyone could ever overcome. Death was final. And so they're left wondering, is Jesus, like, we love Jesus, we follow Jesus, but a part of them is anxious because they're thinking, what if Jesus doesn't? What if Jesus isn't who God says he is? What if God isn't good? And right now, we're thinking through those same questions all the time. What if God isn't good? What if God isn't in control? And we let our minds wander to really dark places. I think Friday, Good Friday, was one of the darkest days in human history. But I think the day after, that Saturday, is one of the most anxious days in human history. The religious leaders are anxious about being right, self-preservation. They're anxious that Jesus might actually be who he said he was, and then they made a huge mistake. And Jesus' disciples are anxious, a small part of them, because what if Jesus doesn't come back? Everyone is overcome with anxiety on this Saturday. And in so many ways, it parallels our current situation. We're constantly asking ourselves, is God still good? Is God in control? The good news is we'll find out on Sunday.